Greetings, YouTube. LMS Tactical here. It's been a while, I know. I'm in the middle of another huge project at the house. Yeah, I wanted to come on and say a little bit about what's happening in Israel. And I know there's a lot going on in South Africa too. I just got some information that I want to talk about later on today. As soon as I recharge my phone, I got 2 other videos I want to make. But I'll get the Israel-Palestinian thing out of the way. And this is, for the most part, those that follow me and have been with me for a long time know how I feel about this. I am going to tell you right off the bat, I support Israel. Now, unlike the Jew haters and the people who try to mask their hatred for Jews under just saying, hey, we just don't like the fact that they're trying to commit genocide and blah, blah, blah against Palestinian people. Unlike those people, I'm going to tell you right now, I have genuine sadness for the Palestinian people that get killed in Israel's retaliatory strikes. The operative word is retaliatory strike. Nothing I'm going to say here is profound. It's all basic. The most ignorant human being on earth could fully understand this if they chose to, but they don't want to understand it or acknowledge it because it goes against their narrative, whether they're overtly hating Jews or they're trying to covertly hate them. It's willful ignorance is what it is. And what I'm talking about is, I'm not going to solve this Middle Eastern problem or the problem between Israel and the rest of its neighbors on a YouTube video. And I go back and forth on TikTok and we argue about things, and on Facebook. Nobody's going to solve that issue because this is a problem that's been going on forever. Okay, that's never really been a region that's known for its peace. Nevertheless, you got to call a spade unless you want to lie to yourself. And the reality is, just for a moment, forgetting the history of Israel, the true and proper history, or your interpretation of it, just take all that off the table and ask yourself, in every instance, who starts the violence? Now, the first thing that a liberal Jew hater is going to pop up and say, or even a conservative Jew hater, is going to, well, that's because they're occupied. What do you want them to do? Just submit? I know it's hard to do it for some people. Take that out of it just for a second, because you have to simplify things. The old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And knowing ahead of time that we're not going to solve the problem, it's easier to manage, even for a freaking Democrat to manage this, if you just make it simple, but factual. And the facts are, who starts the violence every time there's a bloody conflict between those two? And the answer is, no matter how somebody comes on here and tries to spin it, they're just spitting lies, they're twisting reality, because the fact is, it's Hamas who either sends, you can go look through this as much as YouTube tries to hide it, and all of the Jew haters try to hide it. I have endless videos that I've saved throughout the years of little innocent Palestinian children having bomb vests strapped to them and being sent across the border to blow up and kill Israeli soldiers in some cases. But in many cases, when I was in Israel back in 2005, they had a bus bombing, not a bus bombing, but on a bus bench, suicide bomber went over there and blew everyone apart. He was trying to get into the train station. The security guards scared him away. He realized that they were onto him. So he runs across the street to a bus bench where women and children were waiting for a bus and blew them all to smithereens. But that's perfectly acceptable because it's either, that's not really, it doesn't happen a lot. This is what they would say. Or, what do you expect them to do? My God, they're being tortured by the Jews. That's not true. None of it's true. 99.9% of the people that can't stand Israel have never set foot on the soil, haven't walked in the territories, the Palestinian territories, haven't talked to the Arabs that live in Israel, the Israeli citizens who are Palestinians. Yeah, and they have family on the other side of the border there, but they adhere to the Israeli laws. They embrace the freedoms that they could never have just 100 yards across the border. How funny is it that Black Lives Matter openly supports Hamas? by way of saying that they support free Palestine. Yet you also have how many gay or LGBTQ people in America and in the West and in Europe embrace Black Lives Matters. This is the insanity of ignorance when it gets into the groupthink thing. You know, it runs like a virus. That's a real virus, not a fake virus. This groupthink is an actual virus. And the insanity of the LGBTQ people who are holding up signs and proclaiming that they stand with Palestine, where it would take 3 minutes to go find videos of the Palestinians and Hamas throwing gay people off roofs to their death. I've watched it. Or Palestinian fathers stoning their sons to death because they were allegedly gay. Nobody hates gay people more than the true believers of Islam. That's not my fault. That's not me bad-mouthing anybody. That's just the way it is. And if they're honest with you, they'll tell you that. And speaking of that, there is no place in the Middle East, no place that embraces the freedom of the LGBTQ society more than Israel. They have hosted so many different events that celebrated, you know, the recognition and the freedom to express themselves for LGBTQ people. Yet those groups here, because somebody tells them, or a celebrity tells them, or Geraldo fucking dickhead Rivera tells them that the Israelis are evil, and they just buy into it because God forbid they should open up a fucking book and actually read something. You know, they get their information off of CNN or off of some athlete that wants to hold his fist in the air and tell you he lives in the most oppressive country on earth while he's making millions of dollars for playing a game. You know, and was raised in a freaking all-white neighborhood. This is the insanity. That's the virus that I'm talking about. Yeah? I mean, how in the fuck is somebody going to honestly say with a straight face, and there's countless people that do this, that Israel is the oppressor when the very charter that of Hamas, it's like the constitution of Hamas, who controls the Palestinian territories and are basically stooges of Iran, if you really want to get down to it. But Hamas's own charter, you can look it up, doesn't call for reclamation of stolen land. It doesn't call for better treatment by the Jews or the Israelis. It calls for the eradication of Israel. Israel was recognized and is recognized by the United Nations, whether you like it or not. You know, we can talk all day long about stolen land. They stole the land. They stole the land. I'm sitting on stolen fucking land. So before I go spouting off about Israel, I better start thinking about how much of America do we want to give back to Mexico, California, Texas, all kinds of places. Or should we give it back to the Native Americans? That's never going to happen. So what's the fucking point? You throw it out there because it's a weak argument. It's like calling somebody a racist when they disagree with you. It doesn't have any meaning, doesn't have any effect. It exposes you as the ignorant person you are. You know, you're a racist. You know, it's used so much, it's lost all its meaning. Nobody gives a fuck. It's taken away the actual allegation of racism against somebody, because now we're all racist if we don't follow your fucking way of thinking, which means you've taken all the power out of the word. Nice going, liberals. You know, so I've always said this. I've said it on other videos. Nobody can dispute this reality. If Israel laid its weapons down today, they wouldn't exist tomorrow when the sun comes up. If the Palestinians and Hamas laid their weapons down today, tomorrow the sun would come up, life would go on, there'd be weddings and birthdays and people could rebuild. Yeah? What other army on the face of the earth, what other army in history of humanity has ever targeted a location and then made phone calls to everybody in that building and given them time to get out and evacuate, and says, we're going to take your building down because we know it's being used by Hamas as an observation post, or it's a command and control center, or it's a this, or it's a that. And they lose the Hamas targets that they want, but you can go right now and look at many videos of Israeli pilots locked onto a building or a missile launcher site and then pulling off because there's kids and innocent people around, which isn't an accident. You got to remember, in a certain religion, it is considered honor to die for the benefit, for the furtherance of jihad, for the movements of jihad. That's why when a little kid in Palestine puts a bomb vest on, or somebody puts it on him, and he goes across the border and he blows up a couple of people, they have pictures on the walls painted. These people are heroes, man. These are the lions of Islam. I think it was Golda Meir that said that there'll never be peace in Israel until Palestinian mothers love their children more than they hate Israeli children. It's about hatred. How do I know this? Because in 2002, I think, or 2005, 2008, and about 7 or 8 other times, the Israelis have offered the Palestinians what they say they want. It's been rejected every fucking time because they don't want anything except the destruction of Israel, which is never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You know, at one point, what was the guy's name? Was it Gaddafi? I think it was. No, it wasn't Gaddafi. What the fuck was the guy's name? I can't remember. The dude with the plaid fucking scarf on. What the hell was that guy's name? It's slipping my mind. But he absolutely turned down the offer. God, was it? I don't remember the date now, but it was, there's been so many offers, but this one offered to force the Israeli settlers out of an area, give them the West Bank completely, divide Jerusalem in half, and recognize the Palestinian state. No. Why'd they turn it down? Because that's not what they want. That's just what they tell you they want. They're showing videos that I've seen 1,000 years ago of little kids. I just want to grow up and be a doctor. You know, what the fuck? You guys that hate Israel and you can't articulate factually why you hate them are the most ignorant people that have ever walked the planet. And this is how Hitler rose to power. This is how regimes take over that end up just pushing out the insanity and violence against its people. The Khmer Rouge. It can't happen because one guy hates another way of life. They have to have stooges that are willing to repeat the bullshit. And every one of you is playing your little part, man. If you're out there going, oh, Israel, they're trying to commit genocide. You know, one fucking person on social media threw out the word genocide, and then like little sheep, they're all like, it's genocide, it's genocide. Really? Do you even know what the meaning of genocide is? You're telling me that the strongest fucking little teeny country in all of that area of the world is working hard all these years to commit genocide against the Palestinians? Well, here's a truth flash for you. If Israel really wanted to get rid of the Palestinian people, they'd be gone in about 7.5 minutes. That's not genocide. Today I started hearing the word pop up. It was all over social media because somebody used the word apartheid, hearkening back to the old days in South Africa. These fucking people have no clue what they're talking about. They don't know what apartheid means. They don't know the history of apartheid. They don't know the fucking meaning of the word genocide. They can't spell Palestine. They don't know anything. They're just little heads attached to bodies that talk shit and are too fucking ignorant to look shit up. At least if you hate somebody, be able to factually explain your hatred instead of just parroting what the other idiot next to you does. Israel, let me tell you something. There are countless Palestinians in the IDF. They serve in the IDF. They're Israeli citizens. They love the freedom they have. The women have all the freedoms that I have and all the women in my country have. They have all the freedoms you have. If you're gay, you have all the freedoms. Just go into the West Bank, into the Palestinian side, and try to pull that shit. See what happens. Go wear your rainbow, go wave a rainbow flag and dance around on a corner in the West Bank. And let me know how that works out for you. And now go down to Tel Aviv or go into Jerusalem and do that. And people are going to smile and take pictures of you and tell you to have a nice day. That's the reality. I don't give a fuck how Israel was created. I happen to know the truth. Okay, I've got family members that survived the Holocaust, a couple that went to help found the state of Israel, which was a reclamation, because where is there a legitimate map in history that shows Palestine on it? Doesn't exist. The Quran doesn't mention Palestine once. It mentions Jerusalem and Israel, I don't know, 30-something times. I don't know how many times, multiple times. Over 20. Because in basic history is Israel has existed since the beginning, just about. I mean, as far as this conversation goes. But basically, the Romans drove them out because they accused them of killing Jesus. They went and they matriculated and circulated all throughout Europe, and they thought they had things going okay, blah, blah, blah. But somebody with a funny-looking mustache convinced everyone that they were the problem. They got rounded up, and they got slaughtered. Oh, I know, that didn't really happen. The Holocaust didn't happen, because that's what leftists do. They change history to fit their narrative. But the rest of us with a brain, we know what happened. I lost 90% of my father's side of the family in the Holocaust. And so once they were rounded up and slaughtered, those that survived said, you know what? It's biblical, man, that they were going to be hated. So we're hated, and we can't rely on other countries to protect us. We're going home. We're going back home. Now, I think they would have been within their right to go there with guns and say, get the fuck out of here. But that's not what happened. All right? The Brits controlled that area. That was, the Palestinian people were being controlled by the British at the time. And by the way, what you see in Israel today was nothing but a fucking cat box of sand, and nothing was there. So they went and they bought some, they forced some off. But the fact of the matter is, once Israel came about, you talk about jealousy. Now you have lush, beautiful farms as far as the eye can see. You have desalination plants turning salt water into drinking and potable water. You've got all these genius inventions, these medical inventions, these military inventions. You've got a smarter group of people living there. And these people who own 99% of that area can't fucking survive without that one last little percent. It's because of their hatred of Israel. And why are they refugees when they're surrounded by Islamic countries? Because they don't help them. Why don't they help them? Because they need them. They need somebody there to be blown up and to blow people up so that they can keep the fuel going on this fire. You think somebody really wants peace? The only ones that want peace is Israel. That's why they have the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. They're not taking over countries. They could blast every one of their neighbors off the face of the earth. They're fucking nuclear power. They're soldiers. One soldier is better than 50 of any other surrounding country soldiers. That's just the truth. Sorry. So that's my take on it, man. I stand with Israel. If you don't stand with them. But if you're going to talk shit about them, try to get it somewhere close to the fucking reality. Just somewhere close to reality. And don't be a parrot, because it makes people look stupid. Anyways, hope you guys are doing good. LMS Tactical, I'm out. Have a nice day. God bless Israel.